Hello. Hello and welcome to Engineering Master Academy's training on visual method sheets. This is day 3. I'm Brian Wood, your host. I'm going to try something a little different today. I try to do something a little different every day. I'm going to start at the whiteboard and I'm going to jump right into things because today is all about planning, which I could have done better on today, but today is all about planning for your next method sheet project. I'm going to jump right into things, try to keep things shorter than last time. I'm going to go right into an equation that I was partially given. I don't know the original source for this equation, and I partially came up on my own through my own experience. This is an equation that I usually reserve for different kind of training, a deeper training, but something I think you could use right away, something that could be helpful to a lot of people. So let me jump right into it. When you're planning, one of the first things you want to know is how long is it going to take for you to document this assembly that you're going to be documenting. An equation that has worked far better than I would have ever imagined it could work is an equation that is simply 3 minutes per part times 2.5. Now, how does this work? So let's say you have an assembly you're going to be documenting that has 50 major parts in it. And let's say, when I say major parts, I mean parts other than hardware, not screws, not nuts, not bolts. You have 50 major parts. Well, at 3 minutes per part, obviously that's... Oh, can't see that very well. Sorry. Obviously, 50 times 3 equals 150 minutes, or probably approximately 2 hours. That is what time you would expect for a controlled build time. What controlled build means is you're going to be out on the floor with the operator building the product. They're going to have to go slower for you so you can take pictures, so you can ask a few questions. And so this 3 minutes per part actually turns out to be far more accurate than I would have ever believed for how long it actually takes to go through a controlled build while taking pictures. Now, I mentioned that I'm not including in here screws, nuts, and bolts. That can be a huge variable. If your screws, nuts, and bolts are just coming in a few here, a few there, then absolutely add them to this number. If you have something like a situation I ran into where I had a single sheet metal part that had 50 it had about 30 screws around it, but each screw also had a flat washer and a lock washer, which came up to about 90 parts added. Adding all 90 parts to this didn't make sense. What did make sense is to add a quantity 1 of the screw, the nut, flat washer, lock washer, and that came out very, very close to giving me a good build time. So let's say you have your build time is 150 minutes. This is 50 minutes. Now you also have to figure in your creation time for the method sheet. Method sheet, you should figure creation time is equal to the build time. So you simply take this and times 2 for the method sheet creation, or the work instruction creation. So that equals 300 minutes. The last thing is you want to prepare for the unexpected. You're going to run into bumps in the road. You're going to run into unexpected things that come up. Things are more difficult. Maybe you have to stop and do adjustments, take new pictures. Maybe you forgot to document something on the floor. You have to go back and figure out what it is that you missed. This can happen, for example, if you're documenting tools and you forget to get a tool size number. You don't know what size screwdriver that was, what kind of size Allen wrench that was. You giving time for that, I add another 50% of whatever the the controlled build time is. So we go from 300 minutes, adding another 50%. That makes it 375 minutes. This is a critical question. This is a critical exercise you need to go through before you get started so you understand what impact this is going to have on your own work schedule. If it's something quick, like a 50-minute build, it's quite different than if you have a 3-day build. But even on a 3-day build, using this equation can be very helpful. One other thing is if you have tests in there, you want to directly add in test hours. For example, maybe you have build time of this, but you have two 30-minute tests. Simply directly add in those 30-minute tests. There's not going to be much to add in on the documentation side, most likely. You're going to have to work with that a little bit. But you'd definitely add that into the build time, and then maybe or maybe not multiply that by 2 when you're figuring your method sheet creation time. Now I'm going to switch over here real quickly. I want to try to do this. This is the most important part of what I want to show you today directly. The rest of this is going to be information which is going to be in the worksheet that I created. So I'm going to jump real quickly down to my desktop here and go over the worksheet briefly, and then we're going to call it a day for today. Oops, there we go. So I went over this first part of calculating the hours. I'm showing you here the worksheet that you'll be getting a copy of that you can download. So that's to clear up your calendar. Next, you want to look at which camera? Oh, sorry, on this camera. Next, you want to look at Cypoc. Cypoc is a standard tool used in Lean for process analysis, business process analysis, but it applies to any process. And it stands for suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. Those are the considerations you have. I call them constraints in this scenario. These are actually process parameters. But in terms of setting up your project, you want to look at these are the constraints. You know, when are parts going to be arriving to floor? If you're going to need to order tools or order anything new, when will those arrive? The project parameters, what deadlines do you have, time budget, maybe monetary budget in some cases. The processes, I'll be going into more detail on that in future trainings. And then the definition of success. What is expected from this process? What level of detail is expected? What level of clarity? So, you know, maybe part of the product is being done, but not the entire product. Things like that. So you want to understand what is the expectation from you, so you can properly, first of all, calculate how long it's going to take you, and then make proper commitments to what you're going to get done. And then remember, your customers are the operators themselves. They're customers of the method sheets. They're going to be using the method sheets every day. The manager you're working for, the management is always going to be a customer, because they're the ones that are either allowing you or asking you to create this. And then you have the end users, who are the end users of the product. So you always want to consider the product quality as you're doing this. One thing that can happen is while you're doing this, you might find better ways to do things. You're going to have to balance between changing things and doing things better, or continuing to do things the way that you know isn't quite optimal, in order to phase it in after you've determined what the impact on the customer will be. And then, as gone over on previous trainings, you want to look. Then at that point, you want to look at the SMART goals and assigning SMART goals. It's most likely going to be you and one other person, maybe 2 other people if you're at a small company. So you want to make very clear. You want to be very clear on what your goals are, and you want to make sure that whoever you're working with is very clear on what their goal is. And again, that comes into communication, which I've gone over previously. I'll touch on again on a future training. I want to keep this one short because I know I've gone over time previously. So I'm going to cut this off in a moment, but real quickly, if I can figure out how to do this, I'm going to see if there's anybody online. There's nobody online at the moment, so I'll cut this off here. If you have any questions, please hit me up, and I'll see you next time.